this night, 18 years ago, Erev Rosh Chodesh Adar, a terrorist walked into Yeshivat Merkaz Harav and killed 8 boys. One of them was our cousin, Yonadav Edgefield. Thank you. And most of the boys were outside. The terrorists actually went into the Beit Midrash. They were arranging the Beit Midrash for dancing. And 8 boys were in a side room learning. And he pulled a gun out of a cardboard box, machine gun, and walked into where people were learning and shot them at point blank range. One of the boys was so engrossed in his learning, he didn't even look up from his Gemara. One of the boys killed his father, is a mashgiach in Yeshivat HaKotel, very tall man. I think some of you live in his apartment block in Orach Chaim. And one was my wife's cousin. It's 18 years since that night. So we'll dedicate the shiur to those 8 boys. I don't think they were older than 17. I think the oldest was 17. They're young boys, and they were learning. The young boys were standing outside, and the Mechaber went inside and opened fire and followed them and cornered them and emptied his machine gun on them. Terrible. And so we'll learn in their memory. They would have been 35, 36 today. And so we'll learn in their memory. I had an Azkara tonight of this guy. I haven't gone in recent years to this cousin. There's so many cousins in Azkara. Okay, it's reached, Emily, it's reached. Rasa. Okay. We're in challenging parshas. And but we have to do the parashas and understand the parashas, and with incredible messages. I found that when I was writing, I hope that by the end of the year I'll be able to give you a gift of my Pirkei Avot. It's now proofreading. But when I wrote on the parashas of Mishkan and Vayikra, I always thought they would be the most challenging parashas to write on. Because they're very technical, as you can see, very technical. And you've got a good excuse, right? Because by the time you get to Mishkan, it's almost Purim. By the time you get to Vayikra, it's almost Pesach. You can talk about anything else, but it's always been a goal to talk about Parsha. And so let's have a look here. If you open up your Chumash later on, as I pointed out to you, you might not be allowed into the Midrash building at 10 o'clock tonight, but there is always Sefaria, which you can open anywhere. And yes, I know. Anywhere. And if you want any sources, I can send you by WhatsApp, and you'll be able to carry on learning wherever you are. But if you open up a Chumash, you'll see that we're always looking for a Navi that relates to the Parsha. And what relates to this week's Parsha is Shlomo HaMelech building the Beit Mikdash. So what I want to show you here is a number of comparisons and then go in a certain direction, all depending on the time that we have, comparing Parshat Terumah to the Parsha of Binyan HaMikdash, which really climaxes in Melachim Aleph Perek Chet, the consecration of the Mikdash, but is running through a few prakim beforehand, all the details there. And it all seems very, very tedious. And what is incredible, someone once told me this, Rabbeinu Lau, we were learning, and he once told me this, he said, there is nothing that is not interesting as long as you are prepared to apply yourself to it. Meaning, even if something on the surface seems very technical and tedious, if you are prepared to open up and learn it properly, you will find remarkable sources. And if you have the time and the will to open up Kli Yakar on this week's Parsha, Rav Hirsch on this week's Parsha, going through the Kelim, you'll see the most phenomenal things, the most phenomenal comments, lifetime lessons. But I didn't want to repeat myself, so I chose a different subject. So start with a piece of Rabbi Sachs, which takes, again, a bit edited a bit, and then Rav Moshe Lichtenstein, which hits the same question, the same subject. The subject we're really dealing with, we are applying ourselves to, is this emphasis. Last Shabbat was Shabbat Shekalim, right? And Shabbat Shekalim is raising money for the Beit Mikdash. We're not really, but we're normally towards the end of winter. That's why next year will be a leap year, please God, because it's very early. We lose 11 days every year, as Dr. Yocheved told you about Ramadan, right? So they lose 11 days and they keep losing 11 days. They're never put back in place by the sun. Islam, they go by a lunar year, and therefore every day Ramadan gets earlier. So Ramadan begins tonight, but a few years ago it was in the middle of the summer. It just moves back. When we move back, we have a leap year and it moves us forward again. So we're towards the end of the winter, and towards the time Shekalim is about collecting the money to get the Beit Mikdash ready for Pesach, which is by far the biggest event of the year on a national level. By far the biggest event of the year, because everyone has to come to Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim means the Rova, or the four Rovaim, and eat Korban Pesach. You can't eat Korban Pesach in Afula, because you need to offer it out in the Beit Mikdash. So everyone's here, everyone's in Yerushalayim, and they have to get the Beit Mikdash ready, and Shekalim is a tax, right? A tax to... So this is the first time Moshe is about to build a Mishkan, not entering the Sukkah, but just so you be aware of it, not entering the Sukkah of when this happened. Because Rashi tells us that this happened after Chet HaEgel. Right? Rashi says that really it should be the second part of Ki Tisa, then the commandment Terumah to Tzaveh, then the beginning of Ki Tisa, then V'yakel Pikudei. And the Ramban says, no, it's all in order. And it's a big nafkamina, right? Whether the Mishkan is a Lekatchila or B'di'evet, not our subject. So have a look here. Chamesh, so we're starting 5 parashas, which are essentially Mikdash parashas. If you're working hard in Rashi, it's hard work. You need pictures. You need pictures in Rashi, or you've got no idea what's going on. But you work hard for a couple of years, and then you can do it forever, because you understand what the pictures look like, because a lot of the stuff, we just don't understand what the Mitziyut is. So Chamesh Parashiot HaShavua Akravot Yukdushu Kulan. The next 5 parashas, until we get to the end of Shavuot, we're kind of finished with a narrative now, more or less till Bamidbar. More or less till Bamidbar. I have a bit of Nadav and Abihu, the first third of the beginning half of Vayikra. Vayikra has no narrative, as we've learned in Torah B'Kiyut, and we don't get back to narrative until Bamidbar. And Bamidbar is a lot of narrative. But the next 5 parashas, Lema'et Hafsaka L'Sipur Chet HaEgel. Besides Chet HaEgel, which is Ki Tisa, L'Tiyur HaMifal HaMeshutaf HaGadol She'esik Et Bnei Yisrael B'yotam B'Midbar. This is the biggest project that Am Yisrael have in the Midbar, which is building a Mishkan. Building a Mishkan. B'niyat HaMishkan HaMikdash HaNayat She'yishamesh Ma'on Sibli L'Shechina. Wow, there's so much to say here. You were probably about 8 years old when I spoke about this on Tisha B'Av in South Africa. But I did speak about it, ask what Korban is. Define Korban. And in order to define Korban, you have to understand what a Beit Mikdash means. If you open up the Ramban, on Perek Kaf Hey in Shmot, the Ramban says the Mishkan is a moving Har Sinai. A dynamic moving Har Sinai. So what's Korban? Korban is when you don't have that dynamism. It's what Judaism has been in the mode of preservation for 2,000 years. We haven't had that dynamism of a Sanhedrin, of a Beit Mikdash, and that's why there are so many issues today. The issues they're dealing with B'nai Akiva in England today weren't the issues we were dealing with. They weren't even close to the issues we were dealing with. You're dealing with much more serious issues that we never even thought ever coming up. The kind of questions that are coming up, we need the chief rabbi to be involved. Nothing like that. It was whether to have the Sholem on Friday night or not. There was nothing particularly severe, and people are stuck. It's one of the biggest crises that people don't talk about. It's the different issues evolving in society where the halakha has one answer and no one can give a different answer, and it's a kind of a checkmate situation where orthodoxy is preserving something, but we don't have a mikdash. It's horrible. It's real horrible. המשכן הוא בית התפילה המשותף הראשון בתולדות ישראל. The Mishkan is first and foremost, and you see that when you open up the Mikdash in Malachim Aleph, it's about davening. It's really about tefillah. Remember, no animal goes inside the Mishkan. Animals don't enter the Kodesh, not the Kodesh HaKodeshim. You have a menorah, you have a shulchan, you have a mizbeach, a ketoret. The mizbeach with the animals is outside. Controlling the animal person is the first stage of religion. It's not the upper level of religion. You go in, there's no animals inside. There's only cows by the menorah. The Kodesh HaKodeshim, only one person goes in there. It's a whole different, the levels here. So people always say that korban. No, Mikdash is about tefillah. Lishmoa el tefillah ve'el rina. המצוות פותחת את פרשות הללו אינו דומה למצוות הפרשיות הבאות אחריה. But we're starting this idea of Mishkan. So you want to go into building a Mishkan and how to build it and what to build and where to place what you're placing. עניינה בממדי ייחודי של מפעל וידבר השם משה לאמור דבר בני ישראל וייחו לי תרומה. That's it. The Mishkan is built with trumot, with donations. That's all, trumot. According to what you want to give, without it becoming too confusing. Machasit HaShekel was a fixed tax, but it's one of three, and the majority of money that was donated to the Mishkan was voluntary. Whatever you want to bring, you bring. ועשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם. הדגש מושם כאן על אופייה ההתנבאותי של התרומה. That it's voluntary, it's a voluntary donation. You're giving of yourselves. That's how the Mishkan is built. That's what the essence of the Mishkan is. מדוע? Why? הרי עצם בניית המשכן והעבודה בו הם חובה. We have to build a Mishkan, right? So what do you mean everyone gives what they want? So the people who want to give more, they have to give more, and the people who don't want to give, don't give a penny. There are always people like that. You know, I don't know whether this still happens. There are people, we saw it in that film last week, people who put buttons in charity boxes, so it makes the ting, so that people think they're giving money. It's an old trick, right? They don't want, they're embarrassed not to put anything in, so they put a button in. Or the person that puts up the box later, they see a button in there. What are they going to do with a button? Unless they need them for clothes. What are they going to do with the button? So some people don't want to give a penny. They don't want to give anything. But if the Mishkan is Kavua and the Korbanot are Kavua, Torah Metaret Peirut, and the Torah gives us so much detail about Korbanot. Gam Chelek Me'atrumot Hen Hayu Ke'elu. Al Kol Ha'am Huklasa, you have a Sana which is Korban, like we said, Machatzit HaShekel, but that's just for the stones that hold up the walls of the Mikdash, the Adonai HaKesef. That's it. And every year, Parshat Mishpatim, a month before, we collect shekalim for korbanot. Korbanot that are korbanot sibur, that are communal korbanot. Individual korbanot, you bring your own. המשכן עצמו הוא תחומו המובהק של הקודש. The Mishkan is a holy place. ובקודש משה רצונו של אלוקים. And the holy place, God's in total charge. He's in charge everywhere, but he's in total charge. Not what we want. It's not what we want, it's what God wants in Cain. So why does it have to be built with Terumah? There has to be a Mishkan. This is Avodah. So why does the Avodah have to be? Why does the Mishkan have to be built with donations? Next paragraph. יש במקרה מקומות שפשרה מתבהר רק במבט לאחור. Sometimes we only understand retrospectively what a situation is and what a situation means. And what he does here, afterwards you kick yourself, you think, why didn't I think of this? And then you realize you didn't think of this because you're not Rabbi Sam, or you're not Rabbi Shalitvish, that's why you didn't think of it. But what he says here is obvious in retrospect. אחד מהם הוא זה שאנו דנים בו כעת. כדי להבין את פרשת השבוע, to understand פרשת השבוע, there is something so fundamental here, ladies. You've got no idea where I'm going with this. I know where I'm going with this because I'm prepared. You've got no idea where this is going. We have to go 500 years forward. El Yemei B'ni'ato Shel Mikdash Shlomo, to the time when Shlomo HaMelech was building a Beit Mikdash. הסיפור הוא מן האירוניים ביותר בתנ"ך. It's one of the most ironic stories in Tanakh. Shlomo HaMelech is known for his wisdom, the wisest man of all time. I'm not going to read the pasuk. He asked God for wisdom, and he got an enormous amount of wisdom. He didn't ask for money, he got the money anyway, but he asked for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom. In honesty, if you look at our nation, you look at our people, and you ask yourself the question in the entire history of the Jewish people, remember Avraham Avinu was born in the year 1948, in Jewish years. Easy to remember. He was born in 1948. We've been around a long time. In all of those years, we have only ever had a utopian period in the 40 years of Shlomo HaMelech. Beforehand, we didn't have a Beit Mikdash. Afterwards, the tribes were divided. The only time all of Am Yisrael was together in Israel with a Beit Mikdash in our entire history was during the 40-year reign of Shlomo HaMelech. That was it. It is presented, you look at those psukim, it's presented as the completion, the final goal of Yetziat Mitzrayim. When God says to Moshe, I'm going to bring the people to worship me on this mountain. This mountain is a one-off. This mountain is Har Sinai, but if you want Har Sinai to remain a fixed part of your life, it has to turn into a Mikdash. I've always told girls, your year in Israel can be Shemot Perek Kaf, a one-time revelation. If you don't turn it into a Mikdash, you're going nowhere, you're doing nothing. It will disappear, it will become like a photo album. Whatever the experience, whatever the revelation, if you don't transform it into something which is fixed, it will disappear off the face of the earth. My experience has not been that. You walk into my room, my Rosh Yeshiva sitting to my left, I could have been in Yeshiva yesterday. It's a fundamental foundation stone of my life, and for that reason we give a standing order to Yeshiva every single month. I would have nothing without Yeshiva. It's the beginning and end of everything, and my experience never ended. But for so many it does. So Mikdash is critical, because otherwise Har Sinai just becomes an event. An event. But often you'll say different. The Sefer Melachim Misalam Tarikh Binyan, we're even told the date, not just according to the years of Shlomo, but how many years it was after Yetziat Mitzrayim. The Pasuk tells us, גם למניין השנים מיציאת מצרים, והיא ב-80 שנה ו-400 שנה, 480 years after we left Egypt. Takes time sometimes to reach a goal. 480 years after we left Egypt, we reached our goal. A Beit Mikdash in Yerushalayim, in Am Yisrael. That was the goal. That was always the goal. It took a long time. A long time. 480 years is a long time. Next paragraph. But now skip to the final paragraph, because otherwise I'll run out of time. So this Mikdash that Shlomo HaMelech was meant to build was the climax of Jewish history. Climax. That's what we pray for every day. A Beit Mikdash, a Beit Mikdash, a Beit Mikdash. So Shlomo Haya Melech Koshel. When push comes to shove, I'm at the bottom of the paragraph on the first page. Oh, I don't actually know, because she sometimes prints it in a different way. Paragraph starts, Ela Shebesikumot, so there is over the page already? Yeah. Because I have my original sheet page around on this page. At the end of the day, it's a paragraph.
It's on the first page.
Okay, we see he failed as a king. הרושם הראשון שאנו מקבלים מהכתוב הוא שכישלון נגרם מנישואיו לנשים נוכריות שהטו את לבבו אחרי אלוהים אחרים. Shouldn't be Elohim, should be Elohim. The reason he failed is because he followed non-Jewish women and followed idols. That's what the pasuk says about Shlomo. אולם קריאה קפדנית בפרקי שלום מלמדת שהגורם המרכזי הוא אופן הארגונה של בניית המקדש. If you read the psukim properly, you'll see that his failure stems from the way that he built the Mikdash. Mifal ze ha'emis al ha'am netel kavir. This was an enormous burden on the people. We're comparing and contrasting, right? Terumah, bring what you want. Most of the Mikdash, most of the Mishkan will be built according to what you decide you want to bring. The Mikdash didn't work that way. It was enormous taxation on the people. It brought disaster. The Mikdash was built, but the bitterness in the people was massive, and it played a massive part in the division of the tribes, even though that was a prophecy. After Shlomo died, the kingdom was split. 10 tribes went one way. Under the, now I'm going over the page a little about you. They followed Yerubba'al. They left Rechavam behind. There were 2 tribes left, maybe a bit more. And this was a changing point in our history. Most of us are from those 2.5 tribes. Plus a bit of Levim. Most of us are Yehuda, that's why we're Yehudim. A bit of Shimon, maybe a little bit of Binyamin. But the rest of us disappeared. Just disappeared. Instead of one united kingdom, there were 2. And they fought each other. We're not really asking why Yerovam rebelled, we're asking why he was followed by so many people. The politica mitrachashim albeinu, and there are many, many scandals in politics. How did he succeed? Where did he get the popular support for his rebellion? In places where people are happy, they have a standard of living, there's general comfort, they don't rebel because they're happy with what they have. There was good finances in the Malchut of Shlomo, and it was quiet, and we weren't at war. So what happened? Why did the people rebel? Why did the people walk out on Rechavam? So I'm going to skip a little bit here and just give you an idea that what happens is that when Rechavam takes over, he is advised by 2 groups of people. One group of people, the elders, tell him, be easy on the people, reduce the taxes as the people requested and they're yours. And the younger generation tell him, you go as hard as your father. And the Pasuk says it was Me'et Hashem, he goes as hard as his father. There was an absolute revolution. And the man in charge of tax, Adinoram, was killed. It's all in the Psukim. And the tribes split. What is the theme that Rabbi Sachs is talking about when you compare and contrast? What is the more beautiful building, the Mishkan or the Mikdash? Mikdash. What is meant to be the more permanent building, the Mishkan or the Mikdash? The Mikdash. What is the qualitative difference between the 2? The Mishkan was built through Ratzon Ha'am. People who wanted to do it, who believed in it, and they donated towards it. The Mikdash was built with coercion. You cannot do anything with coercion. You cannot make people go in the army with coercion. You cannot make people religious with coercion. It just won't work. It will never work. If people are Torah and it comes from within, then it can be. That's why education is so difficult in an institution. Because you have to have a certain amount of formality to run a school. But real education is one-on-one. It cannot be with coercion. You know that. You tell a teenager to do something, they'll do the opposite. They'll just do the opposite. Dafka, because you told them. The theme of Rabbi Sachs's essay is that the Mishkan, I mentioned to a number of you a few weeks ago, Rav Hirsch says that the Mishkan is the least beautiful of all of the tabernacles and mikdashim that we have, but it lasted the longest. It was made by the people, for the people, to serve God. And with all of the intentions that Shlomo HaMelech had, he enforced the building of the Mikdash, enslaved the people, an enormous financial burden on the people, and instead of this being the greatest story in the history of the Jewish people, it was the biggest failure. So we had a Mikdash. But what's the point of a Mikdash if 10 tribes aren't there? What's the point, ladies? What's the point of Yerushalayim, of Bnei Brak, of Lakewood? What's the point if 90% of the people aren't there? What's the point? What's the point? What's the point of having a great Avirah in a Tish if people are eating pig and eating chametz on Pesach and they don't know that they're Jewish? What's the point? What's the point of a Mikdash? When we are the Jewish people. No, but you're not the Jewish people. There are 90% of the Jewish people who don't even know that they're the Jewish people. So what's the point? You have a Mikdash, this classic climax of the Jewish people, and 10 tribes aren't there. They're not there because of coercion, because of kfiyah, as opposed to the Mishkan, which is Terumah, which is Yitron. I'm going to the bottom of his essay now. המקדש נועד לעמוד בליבה הגיאוגרפי הרוחני של אומה השם הוציא מעבדות לחירות. What it's meant to be, the Mikdash, is that climax of the people who were brought out of slavery to freedom. בהתאם לכך, אמונה ישראל נועדה להיות ביטוי לחופש, and that's what we're meant to be, a free people in our land with Torah. המקדש היה צריך להיבנות בתרומות של הדבר. The Mikdash should have been built. The Mikdash should have been built with donations. It should have been built with the ratzon of the people, but it wasn't built that way. And therefore, everything went wrong. Go over to Rav Moshe Lichtenstein. He writes a very similar theme, but I only took part of it out. I only took part of what he said. הפטרת השבוע לקוחה שלא במפתיע מתיאור בעניין שלמה בספר מלכים. אולם אין ההפטרה מספר רק את הסיפור הבניין, אלא עוסקת גם בתהליך איסוף החומרים. For some reason, the Haftarah talks about all of the work that was done in building the Mikdash. HaTorah, 3 dots means I skipped, okay? HaTorah eina mityacheset chashivut rak letosah sofit shel mitzvah. What a sentence. The Torah isn't just interested in the final building of the Beit Mikdash. Kri la'amadat HaMikdash, ela machshiva afet ta'alech ha'bniyah. It's the way you build a Mikdash. It's not just about what it looks like. It's the way you built it. It's the way you built up this Mikdash. נקודה זו בולטת בתחילת הפרשה, התורה איננה מתמקדת רק בפסוק ועשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם. It doesn't just say the goal is to build a Mikdash and I will dwell in that Mikdash, שהוא הפסוק המבטא את המטרה הסופית, אלא פותחת בציווי, דבר בני ישראל ויקחו לי תרומה. It's not just about ושכנתי בתוכם. It's ויקחו לי תרומה. That it comes from the people. What is so wonderful about our country? You know what's so wonderful about our country? I can't start because we won't finish till Pesach. But what's so wonderful about our country is it comes from the people. You understand? It comes from the people. It's a people's army. It's a people's country. It comes from the people. It's mine. It's my country. You can join if you wish. But it's my country. When they do roadworks, you know, we've got this new 2 lanes now in Gush Etzion. It's my road! When they used to do works in Apex Corner, they've been working in Apex Corner since 1960. They're always working. I don't care. I really don't care about Apex Corner. But Gush Etzion, we got a dual carriageway. It's my road. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. It's a people's country. It belongs to us. And that's what makes it what makes it. That's why we're able to fight wars, because everyone fights together. And if everyone's together, you can have a mikdash. You can have sanctity. הדגש על תרומה והנדיבות הלב בולט מיד לאחר מכן נבנות רשימה ארוכה. But now, moving 2 paragraphs down, אף את בניין המקדש על ידי שלמה ראוי לבחון לאור הקריטריונים האלה. If you look for these criteria in Shlomo's Beit Mikdash, you don't find them. הנה כבר מן הפסוק הראשון, from the first pasuk you hear, מתעד גיוס העם לבניין בית המקדש ניתן להבחין בהבדל בתהומי שבין שני המפעלים. There's an absolute difference between the two. Our Parshat is about Terumah, Nadava, Ratzoni. You can see people are singing, bringing the stuff to the Mishkan, and they're singing, and they're tishing, and they're dancing, and they're doing it, and here, bring it, or I'll fine you, or you get a fine, or you go to jail, you have to do this, you have to do this. Tell me later, if I stand outside, I don't do this anymore, that's why Dr. Yocheved said. I stand outside the Shiur and say, you've got to go to Shiur, you've got to go to Shiur, you've got to go to Shiur, you've got to go to Shiur. Sometimes I'll make a joke and I'll say, is that the time, or where's your watch, or I'll buy you a watch for your birthday, just a subtle hint. But if I stand outside, where are you here, why are you here, you want to come, you want to come? Of course not. Of course you won't want to come. But I found out too late. If you schlep your, but listen carefully so you don't make the same mistake. You go crazy every morning to wash your kid's hands, Nagelwasser, and you think the world's going to collapse if he doesn't wash his hands 3 times. He's 3 years old, and you're going crazy because your kid's not doing that and didn't make a bracha. You didn't make a bracha? You know the Nazis tried to stop us making bracha. He's 3 years old! You met Russia, this kid, 3 years old, he's not wearing his scissors. You know the Nazis took our scissors off, you're not wearing scissors, he's 3 years old! He can't read a Russia yet. And you're giving the tochacha bechukotai kitavot to this kid. What do you want? I mean, you think that's going to bring him to Judaism? He's going to want to come to shul. He doesn't want to come to shul when every time he misses shul, he sleeps in. You tell him he's a Russia. You want to be the Russia that say the thing. That's what you want to be. You want to be the Russia that say the thing. Well, can you pay us off? Kid is a fool, 5 years old. If he didn't have an ideological reason before, now he does. And he got it from you. He got it from you. Because on the slightest thing we went crazy, but kafino, the kid will just go running as soon as they can. They'll just get out of here as soon as they can. You know, so I've got 10 minutes left. Everyone try and stay here. Just 10 minutes, okay? So imagine it's a film. A bad film. In Parshat Terumah, הדגש והנדיבות הלב על תרומת ברצון. הרי שבספר מלכים מדובר על מס. It's a Terumah. It's a Terumah, and here it's a tax. Now if you turn over the page, so he's saying the same thing as Rabbi Sachs, but he says something else here as well. There's so much here. I'm trying to make sure that I can get all the points I want to. It says, "Va'aleinu lשים lev לגורם נוסף." There's one more thing I want to point out to you. So you have the Terumah and the Klali. There's something else. This is, again, this is what Moshe led us to. בית המקדש הראשון מכונה לעתים קרובות מקדש שלמה. The בית מקדש is called מקדש שלמה. אך מעולם לא שמענו שהמשכן נקרא על שמו של משה. You have never ever heard the Mishkan being called Mishkan Moshe. It's not Moshe's. It's Am Yisrael's Mishkan. It's not about a person. עובדה זו משקפת הבדל בסיסי בין דימוייו העצמי של שלמה לבין זה של משה. You can see a fundamental difference between Moshe the person and Shlomo the person. פעם אחר פעם, time after time, מדגישים הכתובים את הבית כבניינו של שלמה. We're told the Beit Mikdash belongs to Shlomo. כך למשל בתיאור הבית בהפטרה, you look at the הפטרה, הבית אשר בנה המלך שלמה. The house that Shlomo built. Lo habayit, not the house, but the house that Shlomo built. אלא הבית אשר בנה המלך שלמה, לכל אורך הפרק. Throughout the period, מיוחסות פעולות הבנייה לשלמה, everything is Shlomo. He didn't do it, he didn't do the building. He says, ויבן, ויעש, ויעשה, ויצב המלך, ויסר. לא בכדי פונה הקדוש ברוך הוא אליו ואומר, הבית הזה אשר אתה בונה, the house that you built, is yours, it's your personal project. לשיא מגיעים הדברים בתפילת שלמה, התפילה פותחת בתפילת הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהשם אמר לשכון בערפל, ומיד לאחר מכן, בניתי בית זבול, I have built this house for God. So what Rav Moshe adds in here, which is that we've spoken about Terumah and Kfiyah, the mahut of the Mishkan, is that it's not Moshe's Mishkan, it's the people's Mishkan. So something I've spoken to you about before, when you have a project in life, I think I spoke about it in Quest for Authenticity, when you have a project in life, and you believe in the project, it doesn't matter whether it's got your name on it. It doesn't matter, it's not important. You're not important. The idea is important. You'll die for the idea. It's not about you. And people who live their lives when it's not about them, and projects that are not about them, those projects live forever. But when something becomes a personal accomplishment, it's my ego trip. It's about me, it's Mikdash Shlomo. It can't last, it can't have the same mahut. So there are two massive points here, comparing the Mishkan and the Mikdash. One is that it comes from the people, but they're connected. It comes from the people and it's about the people. And the Mikdash doesn't come from them. There's a mitzvah to build it, but it's coercive. It's so coercive that it belongs to Shlomo. It's Shlomo's Bible. It's not my Bible. I don't have a place in that Bible. Two massive points. You go to the final part here, it says in the so this would be ideal education. 5 minutes, just Rebecca, just 5 minutes. I don't. Yeah, I'm trying not to know. So go. You try it. Shlomo HaMelech Amar b'Mishlei Chanoch lena al pi darko, gam ki yazkin lo yasun. Right at the beginning of Chovat HaTalmidim, zehu ikar ha'chinuch shelo bilvad b'shah she'anana. What is the ikar of chinuch? The ikar of chinuch is not that I teach you now, and a success isn't that you write down what we say now. Successful chinuch is you do what you do when I'm gone. If your parents have educated you properly and you have internalized the values they've given you, you will do it when you're 80 years old. If someone forces you to do something, the minute they're gone, you'll stop doing it. You'll just stop doing it. Gam ki yazkin lo yasum. But when a person gets older, they're still doing it. They're still going on doing it. Why? Because that was the right education. Yad aviv odata kifa alav yishamano v'yasek. When your father's still strong and he still gives you the car keys and he still pays your tuition, you do what you're told because otherwise he won't. Right? Gam kashiv dam. But when you're older and your father comes to visit, but you have your own house, but you're still doing it, but not out of fear. You're still doing it, then that's real chinuch. If you can do that, if people carry on, one of my pride and joy when I look at the midrashah, people like Rachel, Tamara, their students, Franny. I taught Franny. Could anyone teach Franny? I taught Franny. Franny. She was always like that. But when you see these people, they come back and she's running a Shabbat. She's doing this. Rachel's coming back next week. Rachel is Tamara and Tal. Shoshi is a Madricha. You have people who years down the line are doing stuff, not because I told them to do it, but because they got the idea. It's the difference between Terumah and Kfiyah. It's a lesson to be learned. Sometimes we have no choice. You have to have a certain atmosphere. You have to enforce something. Because otherwise it spoils it for everybody else. It becomes al-pi darko. Only if you educate according to their derech, if you can see the person. I told the group earlier that the fun in the midrashah is that you're all so different. I could never teach in a cookie cutter school. I just have girls nodding all the time. You've got H ladies, you've got fire, different worlds, there are loads of different people here. But that's the challenge, you have to find the derech of each girl. You have to facilitate a heterogeneous group of people. It's massive to facilitate. That's why you need a Ravita, a baby, a bird, you need all of these people so you can have Chanoch the Nana Fidal Kol. If you don't have Chanoch the Nana Fidal Kol, it's just all an act. The minute you get out of here, it's a waste of time. The aim is Terumah, is that it comes from you. You understand the fundamental point. Terumah means it comes from you. It has to come from you. Not even just at your age. When you're younger, it has to come from you. We just don't know enough when we're teaching younger kids, when we're young parents, we just don't know enough. You don't know enough to do that. You've got to be very profound to understand that. It has to come from the child. It has to come from the student. And then if it comes out, you've got a mishkan. And if you coerce, you'll have the splitting of the tribes. They might hold it back for a few for Kavod Shlomo. But when Shlomo's gone, it's just going to blow up. That's what happens. Ki hachinuch lo tzivui levad. Chinuch isn't just telling people what to do. And before the cynics start saying, you told me I couldn't drink, chinuch doesn't. Chinuch of a group of people is a pure chinuch. You understand that the Torah doesn't say anywhere to build yeshivas. The Torah says, "V'shinantam levanecha," that you should teach your child. Chinuch is one-on-one. That's how it should be. Once you have a whole school, you have to deal with other factors as well to keep a certain atmosphere. As long as you know it's not chinuch. It's not chinuch, right? You're trying chanoch lenal pidakol that each person has. The coercion comes in there, but the educator has to know that when coercion comes in, there's no education taking place. There's no education taking place. Gam lo hergel, habit also doesn't work. I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up. I'm sure that loads of girls in this room, since they were a week old, they've been washing 3 times a day, and they still forget. They still forget to wash their hands in the morning. If you do it since they were 3, hergel doesn't work either. It still doesn't work. So hergel doesn't work, sivui doesn't work, so what works? If it comes from inside, it works. If it doesn't come from inside, it will never work. That is a challenge of our year, because it's probably the first time in your lives, for the most of you, there are a few girls doing credit, but for the most of you, where your entire existence and success in this school is entirely dependent on self-motivation. It doesn't matter how many times we take a test. It doesn't matter how many times. If you don't want to do it, you won't do it, and you'll waste your time. I can't force you to do it. You can't. In a school, they can hand grades over your head. They can hand detention over your head. They can keep you behind. They can tell your parents that. It doesn't work here. It's just so. You haven't got anything like that. You haven't got anything. Just the goodwill of people who come here, and they want. It has to come from inside. It cannot be. And the lesson here is twofold. You want to build a Mishkan and not a Mikdash. You want a Mishkan? It's Bilvavi Mishkan Eved. Bilvavi, with my heart I build a Mishkan. Nothing else, with your heart. Teachers can direct, but you cannot coerce. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I'll tell you a story from my first year in charge. I took over this school we took over this school from World B'nai Akiva. It was you remember that? I don't know. It's a World B'nai Akiva school. It was chaotic when I took over. It was like the world before the first day of creation. Tohu Mabohu. Teachers weren't being paid. They were all voluntary, so they came and they didn't come. Girls came and didn't come. I still remember the Beit Midrash used to be classrooms. I still remember Rav Sussman bringing breakfast up to some girls who hadn't got up yet. He brought a tray, knocked on the door, said, "Get out of bed." It was like he put a tray of breakfast outside there. The stories we could tell. And but I wanted an order. I'm going to make order in the school. So I said, any teacher, totally true, any teacher who won't take wages is fired. I'm not having any voluntary teachers. I don't want voluntary teachers. No one's doing me any favors. I'm paying. If you want to be paid, you come. If you don't want to be paid, I don't want the volunteers. I want proper teachers who will be paid. And that's the first thing I did. Then the second thing I did, and this is terrible for the MTA because I took over in the middle. So it's like a Stalin revolution. Who the hell is this? And I'd already been teaching here. So I remember a particular story. My aim was get girls into Shiur. So I used the terrorist option. There are 40 girls in the school, right? You can't disappear like with 120 girls. You think you're not missed. Of course you're missed. We know. But with 40 girls, you can't possibly not turn up. I remember one day, I got all the girls into the class. The room was room 5, where the piano is, room 5. All the girls were in the class. Always MTA or Torani. No, MTA and Torani learned separately. That's how it worked. MTA and Torani were 2 separate rooms. And there was a girl, I got her into class. She's probably having trauma therapy, how I got her into class to this day. I got her into class, and she's sitting at the back of the class, and she's writing, and she's writing, and she's writing. Oh, it works. After about 10 minutes, she takes what she's writing, folds it into 2, gets an envelope out of her bag, puts it in the envelope, takes a stamp, puts a stamp on the envelope, and says, I don't feel well. So I said to her, the post office is closed. If you don't feel well, you can go to bed. And it was such an education for me. You can bring a horse to water, you can't make it drink. You can force a girl into the class. You can say, we're going to teach her. She doesn't want to sing, she ain't going to sing. You can sing prog 1,000,000 times. She don't want to sing prog. She don't want to sing prog. She don't want to sing anything. She said, oh my God, it's a tish. Oh my God, I'm going to get through this. You don't need to come to my tish, I won't take it. And lots of people have not come to my parties. It's not, I'm used to it. You don't have to come to my tish. But she's sitting there, you can't make a girl sing. And you can't worry about if a girl doesn't want to sing. So it's not important. These are such an important thing for me. I told you wouldn't even think I was going to talk about a Mishkan. It has to come from your heart. It has to come from your heart. The challenge for the educator is to get to your heart. That's a challenge. And I have to tell you that if it wasn't so urgent, because we have no time, it would be fascinating. I remember having a girl once in the school a number of years ago. She just wasn't interested in anything. And she was going to Poland with Jeremy. It was a summer Poland trip. And I just said to him, I just want to know one thing. The minute her eyes light up, you phone me and tell me. I need to know what gets this girl interested. And he came back and he said, nothing. Not Treblinka, not Bukakova, not Brzezinsk, nothing, not a bat of an eye. I still don't believe there's no such thing. There's no such thing. Everyone has something. And the challenge for the parent, for the educator, is to find that thing. Why? Because I have to wake your heart up. Once your heart's awake, I can let you go. Then you can do, then the sky is the limit. That's the greatness of Moshe. There's no ego, there's no Moshe, and it's Terumah. And the mistake, even though it's hard to reconcile, right? But the mistake there is a coercion. That you cannot coerce anything. You definitely cannot coerce religion. You cannot coerce religion. One final thing, we ended the year once, a long time ago, and we didn't do the Mesibat Shiur here so long ago, and it's like last Shabbat, whatever, and we're talking at a circle, and it's a classic English girl, Cohen. I don't want to be rude, but I don't want to say something, but maybe sometimes, do you think maybe perhaps, sometimes you might, sometimes brainwash about Aliyah? So I said to her, I had two answers. I said, number one, they've been brainwashing you in Chutzlaritz for 20 years about Chutzlaritz, so I get 1 year. So I said, but number two, you cannot be brainwashed. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to. And you cannot be brainwashed. And no one ever makes Aliyah because of me. It's just too hard. It's just too hard to leave your family and to leave everything and come and live in Israel. And don't just because Rav Nielsen got excited on Yom Ha'atzmaut, waved his flag, and he sang on Chaim Shana, I'm going to Mitzvah Klali. It doesn't work that way. I said it just doesn't work that way. And I would never, ever, ever want it to work that way. The only way I want it to work is that I'm able to facilitate. I will never, ever take credit. I won't take credit for your success. I won't take credit for your failure. I won't take the blame. It's yours. And girls often to a man say it's all because of you. It's Shiur. It's not. It's because of you. What you do is because of you, for the good and for the bad. All I want to do is be with you, watch you, get nachas. I get a lot of nachas, and see you succeed. But that's exactly the point. Terumah, it has to be you. Because if it's not you, it just won't last. Okay?